With that, I note that we have a distinguished colleague of mine from all the way out on the West Coast, Congressman Drier, who has been here a number of years and is really on top of these issues. It's an honor to have you joining us. I yield, gentlemen.
Thanks for reminding me that I've been around a long time. I appreciate that very much. Now, Mr. Speaker, my friend from St. Louis just brought to my attention an amazing quote that his 88-year-old father brought to mind for him since he had lived through this period of time, that being the Great Depression. And it's a quote from the Treasury Secretary. I appreciate his putting this chart up there because I actually scribbled it down, and I don't know if I could read my scribbling of it, but I'd like to share it with our colleagues. The Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Morgenthau, in 1939, as we were tragically headed into the Great World War II, and as we were, in large part because of the war, able to emerge from the Great Depression, had an amazing statement that he, as Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Treasury Secretary at the end of the at the end of the Great Depression, in 1939, in his testimony provided before the House Ways and Means Committee. And in that, and Mr. Speaker, I'd commend this to my colleagues, he said, "We have tried spending money. We are spending more than we have ever spent before, and it does not work. I say after 8 years of the administration, that being the Roosevelt administration, we have just as much unemployment as when we started, and an enormous debt to boot." What an incredible statement that was made by Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Treasury Secretary in 1939. And the last line, Mr. Speaker, an enormous debt to boot, of course brings to mind the fact that in 1939, the American people and financial interests in this country were financing that debt. Today, we know that that debt is coming from all over the world. It is held by peoples all over the world. And that creates another very unique challenge for us. And so I would say that as we know that our constituents are hurting, I believe very, very strongly that the answer to the problem of the families that have lost their homes, the people who are losing their jobs, is not to put into place a 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 trillion, we don't know what the size of it's going to be because it was 1.1, if you take the $347 billion in servicing, that what it would have been an $825 billion program over the next decade. It's being debated over by our friends, our colleagues in the Senate now. And as we look at that challenge, it seems to me that people understand that that is not the panacea, and nowhere is that made clearer than in the words of the Treasury Secretary who served under the great President Franklin Roosevelt,